Good morning. Today we're all kind of talking about all the things that are going on in our country. We're talking about the politics, the riots, the protests, and all the things that we see that are happening in our country right now. And really, to me, the saddest thing I think that we're seeing really is the fracturing of the church. We are we are empowered by God. We are indwelled by God as the church. And yet, instead of coming together and finding unity through this, our churches are getting torn apart. Instead of taking the route of love that doesn't assume evil, that bears all things, this has become a dividing point. The virus has become a dividing point, and it's a not quite sure how to say it's frustrating and it's embarrassing to see our churches lining up, part not coming because if we can't do it the way we want, we're not coming, and part not coming because they're truly concerned because of their health, their age. They're trying to limit exposure to virus that could possibly do serious damage to them, and the lining against pastors that either they're opening too fast or not opening enough, they're not enough faith in God, or whatever it is. And instead of coming and working together, it's just falling apart. And I find it amazing that a church that is supposedly empowered by the power of God, that is indwelled by the power of God, can't seem to get past this. If when Paul wrote to the church at Philippi, in his opening comments to them, he said in verse 27 of chapter 1, he said, "Only let your conversation, your life, your conduct be as it becometh the gospel of Christ, that whether I come and see you or else be absent, I may hear of your affairs, that ye stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel." He tells us, he says, church, stand fast, stand firm, persevere in the faith. We're to be in one mind and one spirit. We're to be in unity. Unity doesn't mean we agree on everything. It means that we stand together even in our disagreements. He said striving together for the gospel. That means to struggle or agonize together for the gospel. Where is the unity of the church to carry out her mission? He said in verse 28, he said, "In nothing terrified by your adversaries, which is to them an evident token of perdition, but to you of salvation, and that of God." So he tells us not only stand firm, he says stand fearless in the face of the enemy. He said, listen, the sign of righteous judgment to the enemy is the church standing in faith, standing fearless with God. It is a sign of judgment to them. It is also a sign of God's salvation for us. And then he goes on in verse 29 and 30, he says, "For unto you it is given on behalf of Christ, not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake, having the same conflict which you saw in me, and now here to be in me." Paul says, listen, this is what we're given. We are given on behalf of Christ, not just to believe on him, but to suffer for his sake. Where's the suffering in the church? Where is the willingness to give something up for God? Where's the willingness to stand faithful, to bring honor? God knows that the faithful will glorify him and honor him when they suffer. He knows they will grow better, they'll grow closer to God and not bitter. And it's shameful to me to see brothers and sisters who pick such petty things to fight over, to not come to church, to stay back from the family on. It's frustrating to see, and how we kind of group up. Well, I'm in this camp, I'm in this camp, I'm in this camp. The unfaithful just suffer. It's senseless suffering because there's victory in Christ. It's a shameful suffering because they're suffering for selfishness, not giving up anything for Christ. It is sad suffering because there's no rewards in heaven for this. There are so many that are lining up and thinking they are going to be so rewarded because they are crossing their arms and they're not going to go to church till it's the way they want it, till it's the way they think it ought to be. And instead of coming and who knows, maybe there's some places where part of that view, or maybe all of that view is correct, but instead of coming and sharing that and talking about it, we're just isolating out. And others are getting offended because of that mentality. You know, it doesn't matter which ditch you get in. If you're in a ditch, you're in a ditch. We need to get up in the middle of the road where Jesus is. We need to be together as churches. We need to be together, faithful, serving the Lord. If we don't agree with something, we don't agree with something. That's no reason to avoid our fellowship together. That's no reason for the church to get splintered and come apart. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody has all the solutions except God. The church is a body. And Paul told us that each of us are a part of that body. We fulfill a different role, whether we're the hand or the foot or the eye or whatever we are. And right now the church is hobbling and limping and crawling along. And yet here we are with all the power of creation at our fingertips. Paul said, stand firm, stand faithful, stand fearless. It's time for the church to stand. Church, let's stand. And let's show the world that the God we love and the God we serve is bigger and greater than all the problems, greater than the virus, greater than the protests, greater than the politics, greater than the hate, greater than all of this stuff. Wherever you go to church, wherever you call home for your church, go to church. Sunday morning, if your doors are open, go be in church. Go stand with your brothers and sisters in Christ. You may not agree, you may not like it, go stand. I'm not saying if you're in one of those danger areas not to stay home or avoid being around places where you could possibly be exposed. I'm not saying that. I'm saying be cautious, but don't be afraid. Do what you need to do, social distance, do all those things. If we will just use some simple safety, we'll be fine. Don't abandon God. Don't abandon the fellowship. Don't line up on lines to argue and fight about something that needs no fight and needs no argument. Let's go to church. Let's meet together. Let's honor God. And let's tend to those who cannot or who are in a place where they have a real concern. Even if you think that means that they're a weak brother or sister, do you remember what Romans told us? Don't be a stumbling block. Don't dismiss them because you believe that they're weaker in their faith. Don't just dismiss them. Don't stand up with your shoulders back and your nose up like you're some kind of super Christian and they're not. If you really believe that they're a weaker brother and sister, how about you go to them and try to draw them to the next level where you're at? And try to be a little open-minded that maybe with all of the mixed up information we get, maybe there's a little bit of truth on every side of the argument. And not one position has all the answers. Let's go be together. Let's quit the battle. Let's quit proving to the world that God doesn't have any real power. Let's stand in faith. Let's stand fearless. Let's stand and persevere because God indwells us. God, the Creator, indwells us. Let's trust Him for a change and let Him do what He wants to do in our lives. Take some time with Jesus today and don't forget to get together with your brothers and sisters wherever you attend. Have a good day.